Our particular project, Gateway Pacific Terminals, when built and fully operational at full capacity, would generate approximately $5.5 billion in foreign monies infused back into the U.S. economy. We don't think it's an either-or proposition. We think that you can develop family wage jobs and be good stewards and protect the environment.
We stood on the bridge over the tracks at Richmond Beach, and we measured particulate matter concentrations that were well above the health thresholds. The data we have collected on diesel and coal exhaust from trains is very preliminary. I'd be disappointed to see a policy decision go forward without more information on the air pollution impacts.
There's no question that the reality of transporting coal for export elicits divided opinions. The issue is about jobs, it is about environmental impact, and it is about dollars. And today on xConnect Northwest, we'll learn as much as we can about how coal trains affect our region. Welcome to this week's xConnect Northwest, connecting you with the experts. I'm your host, Greg Mills, and today we're joined by Courtney Flatt, a reporter for Northwest Public Radio and EarthFix. Now, before we get going, I want to remind you that you can chime in at home or wherever you happen to be catching this netcast with your questions simply by connecting with us on Twitter at NWPTV, or you can use the hashtag xConnectNW. On Facebook, search Northwest Public Television, by email kwsutv@wsu.edu, or by chatting live with our producer. Just head to nwptv.org and click on the xConnectNW logo for more information. Courtney, first of all, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Now, Courtney, it'll be obvious that you have been involved in a lot of fact-finding and a lot of reporting on coal trains in our region. And when I say our region, our whole Northwest region has been a part of the stories that you have been involved with, and an extensive documentary as well. Can you, as we start with the broad picture, explain the economic benefits of exporting coal versus the environmental risks? And we'll just sort of start with the big stuff and find out who benefits from that.
Sure. In the communities where the coal terminals are going to be built, there'll be lots of jobs created, construction jobs and permanent jobs after the coal terminals are possibly built. There are 3 communities now that are looking at having coal terminals: Boardman, Oregon, Bellingham, Washington, and Longview, Washington. So there'll be jobs created there, and then also probably jobs along the railroads. And then there'll also be environmental impacts too that people worry about. Dust escaping from the trains, pollution from increased train traffic, CO2 and greenhouse gases being emitted as the coal's burned in Asia. And so those are just a few of the things that environmental groups worry about as well.
As we stay kind of on the big picture part of the question here, we're moving toward natural gas and have been for some time as a source of energy in the United States. Now, also as a part of our picture with the natural gas being in the forefront, fracking has been something that's been in the news. And although our conversation is not about fracking, just as far as bringing that into the conversation as far as environmental impact, mining, are you aware of similar arguments for and against going on with fracking? And is there a way for you to sort of put that into a little bit into our picture that we're talking about today with coal trains?
Sure. Where there isn't really any fracking going on in the Northwest right now. We are using natural gas, but I think some of the environmental concerns with fracking are fairly similar: pollution of water and the wastewater wells, and greenhouse gases that could be emitted. There's far fewer greenhouse gases emitted from natural gas than coal, some people say, but there's also the jobs that can be created in those areas as well.
Now, when we're talking about coal, as far as energy is concerned, really our conversation is more about the fact that it is being mined and then shipped through our region and then shipped out internationally. And that's really where our conversation kind of picks up and how it affects our region the most here. The U.S. is pushing for renewable energy. How do you see the coal exports to China and in the U.S. energy picture? And then we'll get into a little bit about how it affects us more at home here.
Sure, I think that's one reason that coal companies are looking to ship coal to Asia, because coal is declining in the U.S. here, and so a lot of our coal that's mined in the Powder River Basin in Montana and Wyoming, they're looking to export it and ship it through the Northwest out to Asia, where there is more demand and where they need more coal to heat their homes and things like that.
Is there still an argument going on in the United States? Obviously, we talked about natural gas really being the prominent source of energy, certainly in our region and nationally. But is there still an argument about keeping coal in the United States that's going on as a part of the greater argument about shipping it out?
Well, there's been, the Obama administration has put a lot of standards into updating coal burning facilities in the U.S. And so a lot of coal places are actually looking at shutting down. The two in the Northwest are going to shut down because it would be far more expensive for them to clean up some of the scrubbers and things that need to be that are going to be required, rather than shutting down and possibly converting to things like biofuel and things like that.
So I guess now that we bring it a little bit closer to home, where is the coal coming from that is being shipped through our region to some of the existing ports? And we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. Where initially is it coming from and coming to our region?
It's initially coming from the Powder River Basin in Montana and Wyoming, and this is a really large coal-producing region in the country. It's got some of the top coal mines where most of our coal is coming from, and so it will be shipped by rail through the Northwest out to Asia.
So where, in fact, will it be shipped? And we talked out to Asia, but let's talk about its transport and where it travels through our region via the coal trains themselves.
Sure, the coal trains, they all kind of come through Spokane, and they bottleneck through Spokane and come down through Pasco, and one of the coal facilities will then, in Boardman, Oregon, it goes through trains there, and then they're looking at transferring it onto barges, which will be shipped down the Columbia River and to another barge facility down and then transferred on to Asia. Two other facilities, one in Longview and one in Bellingham, Washington, all of their coal is going to be shipped by rail through the gorge and up through either to Longview or up through Seattle and to Bellingham.
Let's talk a little bit about these coal ports or these transport ports here. They're not all built, and some of this stuff is speculation, and it depends on whether or not we, I guess, in large, decide that we want to go through with this. Tell me a little bit about the coal terminals that are currently being proposed and kind of where we're at as far as how we do that now. There's a certain amount of it going on now. I've certainly seen the trains myself heading out of the Spokane area and heading to Tri-Cities in that direction. Maybe you can bring me up to speed as to where we're at now and then what the proposed transport stations look like.
Sure. Right now there are coal export facilities in British Columbia. Right now in the Northwest there aren't any built. They're all still going through the permitting and planning stages. The coal terminal that's closest to being built in the Northwest is Morrow Pacific Project out of Boardman, Oregon, the one that the coal will be then shipped onto barges and transported out to Asia. And it's the closest right now. It's in the middle of permitting process, and we can talk a little bit more about that permitting later. But the other two facilities are out of Longview and out of Bellingham, and they are still kind of in the very beginning stages.
So let's talk a little bit about the Cherry Point proposed terminal. That one would be the largest export terminal in North America if that ends up being built, I understand. How is this going to, and we can get into a little bit of some of the environmental issues that are being hashed out with this, how's that going to affect like the Salish Sea and the locals who have based their livelihood on this?
Sure. There will be a lot of trains coming through and a lot of barges shipping out if the Cherry Point facility in Bellingham is built. And one of the main concerns of the tribes up there is that it will impact their treaty fishing areas, and all of the barges coming in and out will impact their fishermen out on the Salish Sea. And so that's a big concern. But then other longshoremen who need the jobs and who need to work up there are really hoping that it gets built so that they can have jobs.
So as far as the tribe's response to the new terminal proposals, have there been specific concerns from the tribes about what the terminals are going to do to their fishing? The sea in general, I guess, is what I'm looking at, and how it's going to affect the numbers that they're able to fish every year, or what the health of the sea is going to be. What are their more specific concerns?
Yeah, well, out of Boardman, they just had a really large protest, and the Yakama Nation was joined by a couple people from Lummi Nation as well. And they came down and they were protesting the coal facility there, and they're worried that the dock and several of the other areas that are going to be built will hurt where they're able to fish and where some of their treaty fishing rights are. So they took to boats and took to the water and kind of demonstrated, this is where we like to fish and this is where you're looking at building the terminals. And I know that they're worried about the trains coming by on the gorge too, and increased barges in the area that could be dangerous for fishers. And so that was back earlier this spring when that happened. And so I think they are concerned about how much fish they will be able to capture, and how much time they'll be able to spend out there.
And I assume that the Boardman conversation is similar, which is closer to home here in the inland Northwest. Same concerns about water and land, or is it more based in the dust coming out into into our region's landlocked areas?
Yes, I think they're still concerned because the barges will actually be in the water, and they are worried about land use and the dust coming off of the trains. It's all just, I think the tribes don't view it as a way that they are looking at protecting the land and the environment for generations down the line.
Let's talk a little bit about how much coal dust escapes from trains. How many trains per day are we talking about coming through the Northwest? What kind of numbers are they, and how do they differ if the big terminals are built versus what the numbers we're at today?
Sure. So if the terminal up in Bellingham is built, it'll be 18 trains per day, 9 empty and 9 full. The terminal in Longview will be 16 trains per day, 8 empty and 8 full, and the terminal out of 22 trains per week. And so it's quite a bit of an increase in rail traffic, I'd say, in and out of the Northwest that we don't see right now. I'm sorry, I missed the second part of your question there.
Well, we can even move. That really answered most of it there, and I was just curious also just about dust and about where we are currently on testing this sort of thing. Obviously, we can come up with the numbers of potential jobs a lot more easily, it appears to me, than we can what our potential fallout is from having the dust through town. So where are we on knowledge there?
Sure. So there are a lot of researchers. Researchers are working on looking at the dust right now, but BNSF Railway has testified that over a 400-mile journey, 645 pounds of coal dust can escape per car. And so what they do to prevent that is they spray a surfactant. It kind of seals the coal dust in, and that reduces the amount of coal dust that's escaping the trains by about 85%. So that comes down to about 100 pounds per coal dust escaping over a 400-mile journey. It's still a lot, and a lot of environmental activist groups will go and they come to some of these coal meetings with bags of coal that they say they've collected near the rail lines. Other people say they haven't seen the dust escape, so it kind of varies on what people have said.
Courtney, thank you. We have reached the end. I feel like there's a lot more to talk about here, and we will certainly keep in touch with you and keep in touch with EarthFix and Northwest Public Radio with the things that you're covering involving the coal trains. Thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg.
All right, that's Courtney Flatt. She's joining us live today from our Northwest Public Television studios in Richland. Now remember, you can stay connected with us all week by tweeting us, like us on Facebook as well. You can add us to your circle on Google+, or you can email us at kwsutv@wsu.edu. Please send us your show ideas. We'd love to hear from you. If you missed any part of today's show, don't worry about that. It'll be available online at nwptv.org. Now, next time on xConnect Northwest, we'll talk about Washington State Initiative 1351. That is class size reduction, with Deborah Olson from the Pullman League of Women Voters, live from our Pullman studios. If you have questions for her, feel free to connect with us online. I'm Greg Mills. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on air and online.